Let's do it.
Welcome to the Music Reel. I'm your host, Nicola Burton. I have Manny from the Pushworth group with me today. And our very special guest is Chris O Brien. Now, Chris is a housebooker from the Sooki Lounge in Victoria, and he's the general manager of touring for Destroy All Lines and the general manager at the Good Things Festival. This is a man who knows everything about our industry. So, Chris, we are very happy to talk to you today. How are you down there?
Well, as good as can be expected, I suppose. It's a beautiful sunny day. I've grown the ISO beard in nicely,
Nice.
much to the chagrin of my wife and two teenage daughters. But we've got to do things to amuse ourselves, don't we?
Exactly. We're all rocking really good quarantine hair. That's the most important part. So I guess we wanted to check in, Chris, and see, first of all, what it was like for you when lockdown first happened in March. What kind of, I guess, chaos did that throw you into?
Oh, wow. Yeah, chaos being the operative word. It was, we were pretty fortunate where we had 3 tours in March that we just escaped through. I think our last artist in March left the country about 36 hours before it all went down. So we were fortunate with that. And then it was just shock initially, and thinking, how long is this thing going to last for? Contacting agents and managers about rescheduling the tours that we booked. But the difficulty was that everyone was in the same boat where they just had no idea. So we were sort of guessing a bit, hoping that maybe towards the end of this year we could see some action with internationals. So we were rescheduling a couple of our tours into October, and then probably within about a week, we sort of sat down and said, no, this is not going to be realistic. Let's start working into 2021, which is essentially what we all did. It was, just trying to keep the staff as motivated as we possibly could, considering everything that was going on around us.
So you guys have obviously done the postponing thing. What other kind of things have you guys been doing since then to keep yourselves, I guess, sane is probably the word?
Growing a beard. No, look, regular communication with all the agents that we have really strong relationships with internationally. So, getting intel on how they're coping, what their timelines are looking like, and that's happening every day up until today. More calls tonight, of course. Outside that, we launched our domestic agency, which was really exciting for us. So we signed 26 artists to the agency, which is, something that we had an agency anyway, but it was just very small and it wasn't really heavily promoted. But we did look at it and think there are a number of artists out there that don't have a home, that were selling some really good tickets, and then there was a few bands at Wild Things that were moving into sort of 1,000-cap venues that wanted a home. So I had a chat with Ellie about that, and it made sense because we come at it from a different angle. We come at it more as promoters than traditional agents, I suppose. So it's very much a more holistic approach. So for those bands doing sort of 300 to 400 caps and above, we do all their avails for them, contract the venues, we do full settlements, all the marketing, all the ticket reports for them. So it really is more a promoter style than a traditional agent. So that's been really exciting for us. It'd be more exciting if we could actually get some bands into some venues as well. But and then outside that, we're working on some drive-in concert options at the moment with another group, which hopefully we'll announce maybe in a couple of weeks. And outside that, it's really just been about locking down the rescheduled tours, which is just proving quite difficult. So we've still got 2 artists to lock in, but because the rest of their global touring plans are up in the air, the tour windows seem to just change all the time. So we just sort of sit here and wait patiently for them to give us a window, and off we go.
Who would have thought this is where we'd be this year, 2020? Certainly didn't think it was going to be like this when we finished December. God. Manny, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. It was like I would never have believed we were actually going to be in this space in my lifetime. It's just incomprehensible. It took us all by, I guess, by surprise. I guess, Chris, being in Melbourne, it's obviously the music mecca of Australia, and they say the music mecca of the world because of the per capita number of venues, etc. So I guess the question that I've got for you, what I've noticed is you've been in the music industry for a long, long, long time. We've been there probably as long as you, maybe slightly longer. What I've noticed is obviously what happens in Melbourne is a little bit different to what happens in Sydney, to what happens in Brisbane, etc., because we're all unique enterprises and we're all different, scenarios and, logistics as well. But it's very interesting to understand and note that there's another side to what we do in the music sector. Okay, we move across to sport. So what I've found is we're looking at the sporting fraternity and actually the hospitality fraternity have come together very quickly with significant government lobbies. And they seem to be very much a unified front. And I guess because they've had that trauma, especially sport in the trauma of being fragmented by other interests, they've been through that Super League issue and how do we become now united, etc. We haven't faced that before because we've always been reasonably prevalent and we've all done our own thing. So what I've noticed is I am part of a, sporting scenario, and it's been very quick. So to the tune that obviously, yes, last night there were 2,000 people allowed to go to a sporting event in Adelaide. We have at the moment, whether it's the same from Melbourne, I believe your number is a little bit bigger than our numbers. We're now allowed 20 people, from 0 to 20 people in venues commencing this week. But to look at the anomaly of 2,000 people going to a sporting event, granted the size of the venues, what I'm understanding about our music industry is that we're a lot of moving in the sum total of a lot of moving parts. Do you think that there's, now that we've gone through this trauma finally that sport went through years and years ago, cricket and various codes of football, is there now grounds for us as probably elder statesmen in this industry to sit down and say, guys, we need some peak bodies. We've got peak bodies in various sectors. Holy hell, we really need, if we ever go through these crises again, we need something, an incisive line in the government rather than a whole series. Well, a lot of guys that we have on our books have fallen through the cracks. They have no income. They've moved. How do we sort that? I mean, is there something that you would recommend that we could physically do, being in Melbourne?
Look, it's certainly a conversation that we've been having a lot over the last couple of months, and there's been quite a few of us that have sort of jumped on a couple of Zoom calls and had a few chats from different sectors of the industry, be it agents and managers and promoters, live music venue operators, essentially sort of saying this exact thing. It's such a fractured industry. Everyone's sort of in it for themselves. They want to look after their own little sort of piece of the pie and just represent that. I mean, we just had another one launch in Melbourne last week, so it's SOS. Save Our Venues, which you've probably heard about, which is all great, and we're certainly throwing our support behind that as well. But I think that's the feedback is that we get from government is that we don't have one body. We don't have a lobbyist going in on behalf of the music industry that racing has, or that the AFL has, or any of those codes. So, yet our job losses are a lot more than what those codes are, and we've lost more money than them. So, it's always been an issue, and I think ego plays a reasonably big part of this, unfortunately. So, it would take a lot of people at the higher end to cast aside their egos and not just look at it from their own perspectives. I mean, you saw sort of Live Nation and Frontier come out recently and do their thing, and but again, it's not solving the problem. It's just them saying, well, we operate at this high level, so what about us? But then you've got all the smaller the music venues saying, but we operate at this level. What about us? Then you've got the Association of Artist Managers saying, well, but we operate at this level. What about us? So the government's sort of sitting there thinking, well, we've got dozens of bodies hitting us up. It's sort of in the too hard basket. We'll just put you to the side, and then once we've dealt with the industries that have actually got their shit together, then we'll come back to you last. That's the way we look at it.
I cannot argue with that premise. It's just so obvious that I think that as an entity, we do need to come together, and who champions that and who's got the energy and time to actually physically do that as well. So it is, whilst it's it's an ethereal problem and a real issue, it's also a financial issue as well, as who's got the time, how does government fund that, and who are the peak bodies? Because when we speak, to Q Music or Music Victoria, Music New South Wales, they're all the peak bodies. But again, yes, they are communicating, but there's no set criteria as to how that line to government's going to end up, looking like. So I guess it's up to the elder statesmen, and there's quite a few guys that have seen the 30 years in the music industry, and it's probably time for those guys to maybe band together who have that experience.
Yeah, look, I think it is. And I think what we need someone that has experience, and they don't even necessarily need to be in the music industry, as in the spokesperson for the industry.
Yeah.
Someone that knows how government work, they know how to lobby, and they know how to get the message across. And then they can come back to us as a body and say, right, this is the information they need, and this is how they need it, and this is when they need it by, and then we can articulate that to them. But at the moment, it's just... it's flying everywhere.
Yeah.
So, the government are happy to splash out money for, some of these, Delivered Live and also Michael's one, which have all been fantastic, but that funding got pulled really quickly. And the feedback essentially was, this is just in a too hard basket. You're all arguing amongst yourselves.
Exactly.
It's unfortunate that that it's happened, because, we've got some incredibly gifted, creative people in the industry, you all know, that are really quick on their feet, but they're sort of fighting an unwinnable fight at the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it seems like what we all need to do is actually trap more data, all of us operators, to be able to trap and know what the data needs to be, what the parameters are, so that we can hand that to a body on a regular basis, and we go, here, this is the reality of what we actually deal with. So, look, Chris, what do you think recovery looks like?
Look, the short answer is I don't know, and I don't think anyone knows. But, we're certainly hoping that, at least Q4 this year, we can, start going back into our smaller capacity rooms. The issue for us is more about the social distancing. So they're still saying at the moment, even the larger venues can open up. And I know Scott Morrison just did a press conference half an hour ago about it. But again, it's all still social distancing. So if the 400 capacity room opens up and they say, yes, you can have as many people as you can fit in there as long as it's social distancing, well, it's still not financially viable for those venues.
That's right.
So until we're given that green light, I don't know what recovery is going to look like, and it depends how long these venues can actually hang on for. And you speak with every venue operator, and they're all singing from the same hymn book, and they're all saying exactly the same thing. So, some venues have different income streams. So if we use Sooki Lounge as an example, they have a fully set up restaurant that they operate. So they've at least been able to reopen their doors. They're breaking even at best, but at least they're getting people back into the venue. At least we've got content we can roll out. No, there's no live music, but at least they're open. But you've got a lot of live music venues that's their only source of income. So for them, they're just dead in the water. And unless sort of JobKeeper gets extended to the industry, then my fear would be that some of them would fall off a cliff. So certainly hoping by the end of this year, but the international side of things, that's not going to be realistic until borders are open. So, the quarantine thing is just not realistic for international artists to come into the country, quarantine for 2 weeks, and then go back out, because who's going to pay for it all? The promoter won't, and I doubt the bands will. And then they're sitting for 2 weeks in a hotel room. So that has to be lifted as well before we can see any form of recovery.
So it's just a general big-ass reset worldwide for our industry, for hospitality, for events. So, look, we're hopeful that there's going to be some opportunities that emerge from this, Chris. Somehow something different will change the way we do things, so that, as Manny said, we're better prepared for it. But, look, it was really good to hear your perspective and what you've gone through. I think it's good for people to understand, look, this is the real face of the music industry. This is what real businesses have had to actually deal with as a result of it. So thank you so much for giving us your time today. It was really good to meet you and talk to you. And take
My
care in
pleasure.
the recovery, and we will stay connected to you, dude. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Nikki. Thanks,
Manny.
Manny.
Chris,
Bye.
cheers.
Thank you.